Welcome to Everyone Loves Guitar, where we sit down and talk with interesting professional guitar players, uncover their stories, and discover what makes them tick. If you love guitar, music, and the backstory of people's lives, stick around. You're in the right place. Hi, this is Craig. Just want to let you know you can now advertise here on Everyone Loves Guitar podcast. For more information, go to everyonelovesguitar.com/advertise. That's everyonelovesguitar.com/advertise. Hey, everybody, it's Craig Garber. Welcome to Everyone Loves Guitar. And we've got one of the rock legends of our time with us. We're with Bill Leverty, who's the guitarist and main songwriter for the famous band FireHouse. Bill grew up in Richmond, Virginia, got his first guitar at age 4. He started taking lessons in 8th grade, and he started studying music theory in high school. His history with FireHouse begins in 1984 when his other band at the time, called White Heat, needed a drummer. They auditioned at least 20 guys, and finally Michael Foster auditioned, and he crushed it. Singer C.J. Snare and bass player Perry Richardson both wound up coming on board over the next 6 months. One night in December 1989, an Epic Records A&R guy flew down to see their gig and offered them a record deal. Was that the guy that just called you like 5 minutes ago?
It was.
That is so Michael. Random. What was his name?
Michael Kaplan.
Michael Kaplan. We were just talking before the show, and he got a phone call from the same guy, from Michael Kaplan, this 1989 Epic Records A&R guy. They went right in the studio with David Prater, who was from Dream Theater, the former drummer for Santana, as their producer. Since then, the band went on to release 16 gold and platinum records, 7 million in sales worldwide. Now, for you millennials, a sale is when you buy an album. 2 Billboard Hot 100 top 5 hits, 4 Billboard Hot 100 top 25 hits, 7 Billboard Hot 100 top 100 hits, 2-time Warner ASCAP Songwriters Award, Love of a Lifetime's #1 wedding song, songs used in network TV shows, major motion pictures, and video games around the world. Bill also has released 4 solo albums of his own, and he also works with other artists in his studio as an engineer, mix engineer, producer, and vocalist. Bill, thanks so much for your time, man. I really appreciate it.
Hey, thanks for having me, Craig.
You're welcome.
Appreciate it, buddy. Glad to be here.
Likewise, man. And he's a former Florida guy, too.
Yeah.
You started guitar at age 4. That's super young, man. What's the backstory there?
Well, the backstory is that I got one for Christmas. It was one of those plastic guitars, and I basically, karate chopped it and left it alone. So I didn't really start playing then. I started playing with a guitar, but I really kind of loved the way it looked. I had a cousin who lived across the street in our neighborhood, and he came down. He really played. And he was really inspiring to me as a young kid, because he had a 12-string and he could play James Taylor, and he was really good. He could sing really well. But I didn't really. I took some lessons at a music store where they taught you row your boat and stuff like that, reading out of a Mel Bay book, and it just bored me to death. So I really stopped. I kind of quit. I just wasn't really my thing at all, and I didn't pick it up again until 8th grade, where I took it up seriously.
What was the trigger?
Well, the trigger was that there were lessons that were offered as group lessons, and I thought, well, hey, I need to give this another shot, because I love Leonard Skinner and I love Ted Nugent, and I want to learn how to play some of those songs, So.
And you just dove back into it, and everything worked out at that point.
Yeah, I got hooked.
So for a while, you were also participating in the sport of driving, and you became the Virginia State driving champion. That sounds like very cool. Can you talk about that?
Well, it's a lot less cool if you take away the R, which is what I actually was doing. It was diving. Not
drive. Why did I say driving? It was yeah, I have driving, and then I have diving. Okay, so you were into diving. Okay, yeah, that is less cool.
It would have been really cool. It would have been really cool if I was driving and winning races.
I was like, wow, that's interesting.
I was a diver. I dove in these champions. I basically lived at the pool when I was a kid in the summer, And the diving coach said, "Hey, why don't you come out to diving practice?" And this is when I was probably, 8 years old. I don't know. And I said, okay. And she was a world-class, diving coach. And she got me practicing. You had to be there at 7 a.m. and it was a couple hours, before the pool opened. And all the people on the diving team were really cool. And I just got into her method of teaching how to dive and how to enter the water without a splash, is the trick, and make it look like, you know what you're doing up there. And so I got into that for a couple of years, and I won a bunch of meets, and then I decided, let's get off the diving board. Let's get into guitar. So I'm glad I made that decision.
That's unusual. It's rare to have a musician that's also excels at sports. That's not that common. Like, I've probably, out of the 400 plus people I've interviewed, 5, maybe. Yeah, that's not that excel at both.
I'm not sure I really excel at either. But I in the area where I was diving, I was able to win some of these meets, and I just got sick of doing it, really. But it's an incredible sport. You do, lots of flips and twists and all kinds of wild stuff, but just wasn't really my thing anymore. But I still love sports. I love to play ice hockey. I've quit playing ice hockey now. I'm just getting a little it's too hard to recover from the games. You get beaten up, for a couple hours, and then you got to fly the next morning. You got to wake up at 3 o'clock to fly somewhere. And I'm all bruised up, and I was starting to worry that my hands would get messed up. I did injure my shoulder, and I had to have shoulder surgery because of a hockey injury. And, I thought, man, I just can't do that to myself or to the band or to my family to all of a sudden, have people go, I wonder if he's going to make it today because he might have broken a hand or something. Yeah. So I just had to give that up. And even in the old man's league around here, everybody forgets that they're old men. They think, they're 22, and that the scouts are up in the stands wanting to call you up to the AHL or the NHL. Yeah. And, it's just we forget. So I gave that up now. So
I hear you, man.
Yeah.
Okay, so FireHouse gets put together. First album. So, which is really like, this is one of the fantasy stories, man. First album sells 2 million copies, wins the American Music Award for Best New Hard Rock and Heavy Metal Band of 91, and a slew of other awards. The single Love of a Lifetime sells over 500,000 singles, reaches number 5. Don't Treat Me Bad goes to number 14. Second album, Hold Your Fire, sells 1 million copies, with Reach for the Sky getting into the top 20, and When I Look Into Your Eyes hitting number 7. So that's a ton. That's like the stuff when you're going to bed at night when you're 18 that you dream about, and then it happened. How did this change your life? The good, bad, and ugly, what was all the...
Well, I always said that, getting a record deal didn't mean the end of all your problems. It's just a beginning of a whole new set of problems. Now, granted, we worked forever to try to get that record deal. That took so long, where we were trying, and we'd make a demo and we'd send it out and we'd get rejected, and we got so much rejection. We even had a record deal with one label, and our lawyer was talking to their lawyer, and then the A&R guy got fired. So we had to start all over again. So it was really, there were a lot of ups and downs with our eventual signing of that record deal. But, we never really had time to really think about, the whole party and the great times that we were having, because we were so busy. The record company kept us so busy getting up real early to go in and play acoustically at the morning show of whatever town we were in, because that's where the listeners were. So we'd go in and we'd play a couple songs acoustically, and then we'd go have lunch with the program director of that station or another station. Then we'd go over to the record store and do an in-store where we'd, hopefully have some people show up and sign their records for them that they would hopefully buy. Then we go to sound check, and then we'd go have dinner with another program director. Then we'd play our gig, and then we'd get on the bus and go to sleep and repeat the cycle.
Yeah.
So it was a little bit of a misconception. I thought it was going to be, a lot of partying and a lot of, just rock and roll lifestyle. But we were our work ethic was such that we really cared about sounding good every night. So we didn't want to stay up all night because we knew we had to get up early, and the first thing to go is your voice. So fortunately, everybody was focused on trying to make the music sound as good as we could every night. I forgot the rest of your question. I think I got off on a tangent.
No, it was cool. No, the question was like, how did it change your life? Good, bad, or otherwise?
Yeah. So the way it changed my life, I guess, is that, with that record deal, as soon as we got the record deal, we were renting a house, a band house, and I put all my stuff in storage, and I was homeless for about 18 months. I was living on a bus or in a hotel. So it wasn't like I went out and bought a house and I could, a place to call my home. I lived in a suitcase, and I was on a bus the whole time, or in a hotel. So that type of lifestyle, I think you learn how to adapt, and it was a little different than I thought it was going to be, but everybody in our band is pretty malleable and pretty able to kind of roll with the punches, and there were a lot of punches. And so that was the one thing that at that point in my life, I thought it would have been a little bit different, but I had no time we didn't have any time off. I mean, we were on the road since November of 1990, all the way till we went into the studio to record our next record, where we were living in a hotel. And then before we finished that second record, Hold Your Fire, we weren't even there for the mix of it. We got on the Tesla tour, and we were out with Tesla. That was a tour that was supposed to be for 6 weeks, and it was so successful with all the promoters, they had everybody back 3 times, and so it lasted for 9 months.
Wow.
So
that must have been a great tour, you and Tesla. I could see that being
tour.
a great tour, man, to be honest with you.
It was great. I mean, and it might have been 2 years that I was homeless. But I was able to buy my first home, and it was in Florida. And I figured if I'm going to buy a house, I want it to be somewhere where if I have a week off in February, I'm not going to be shoveling snow. So
good move.
I moved down to Sarasota, and if I had a week off, I was looking up at the sun.
What made you pick Sarasota? Was it like friends there, or?
No, I didn't know anybody there. I was recommended that by a bunch of people, and I went and visited. I'd visited a lot of other towns in Florida because of the touring, and I loved them all. But somebody said that Sarasota is a really different town in Florida. It's a little bit more laid back, a little less touristy.
Yeah, it is.
And so I went down there and visited a few times and looked around with, I met a real estate agent who I thought was a really cool guy. I loved the music scene. He took me to a lot of bars, and there were a lot of great musicians I met. And I just felt like this would be a great place to when I do get some time off, to have a vacation, to set up my vacation place. And I bought a small house. It was one of the real small little, 1,200 square foot houses. And that was camp for me. So,
Dickie Betts lives down there, and
sure does. Yeah.
Do you know John Prestia?
I love John Prestia.
John was the guy who helped me with the guitar.
You're kidding? Yeah.
No,
John,
he's great,
John,
man.
He's one of my best friends, and I saw him when he came to Richmond with Tim and Faith. He we had dinner, and he took me under the stage and showed me all those the guitars. I actually have I don't know if I put it on my website or not, but I have Faith's SG that I'm playing, and he took a picture of it, and it's her custom SG.
He got her that SG.
Yeah.
He was the one who, that's, God, what, dude, I just got goosebumps. What a small world. This is crazy, man.
Yeah, John's just such a great songwriter too, and a great singer, great guitar player.
Yeah.
And he had a band where I forgot what night.
Was it Pirate or something was it called?
Well, it's the John Prestia group. And
right.
He had a couple of guys in the band that were also monster players. And
Matt
and
Matt Apps was in his band.
Matt, I jammed with Matt a couple of times. He's great, of course. But though at the time when Matt had just left the band when I moved down there, and he had a guy named Pat McDonald. You know Pat McDonald?
I do not know.
Pat McDonald played with Charlie Daniels for, I don't know, 15 years. And he's just a wonderful guy, great drummer. And a guy named Mike Rector playing bass. So, and they had jam night. And so I'd get up and jam with them all the time. They everybody in town would go. There was a musician would go and jam with John Prestia.
Yeah.
It was just that great of a guy that everybody loved, and he also had this encyclopedia of songs that he knew front to back. So, wow,
that is incredible. I can't believe what a small world is.
Yeah, John Prestia, what a great songwriter, and he was one of the first people I met in Sarasota, and he was one of the reasons I said, yeah, man, I want to live here. This is cool people.
Yeah, his enthusiasm for the guitar is. I mean, he like lives, breathes, and sleeps for guitar. It's just so infectious, his enthusiasm for the instrument.
Well, we actually shared a backyard fence, so he was my neighbor.
That's so funny, man.
And we'd meet at the backyard fence and have coffee, and
yeah,
the afternoons we have a beer.
That's really cool, man.
Yeah, he's
very cool. I'm going to tell him that we spoke. That is awesome. Okay. I have a question that I was going to ask you later, but I get the feeling, I could be totally off base, but I get the feeling that you're pretty organized and on top of business affairs. Is that accurate?
Well, I'm a type A personality, so I'd say that's pretty accurate. Yeah.
Were you always like that? Like you're a young man and all of a sudden you're making money. Did you have the awareness of, okay, I got to do something with it, or at least if you don't know what to do, that you knew that you needed to get some help or some guidance or some information as to how to handle it properly?
Well, yes, I listen to a lot of people, and I try to learn from everybody. I always feel like I'm being educated. Talking to you, I'm learning a lot, but my organization, I've always felt like, I've got to have my act together, because if I don't, I'm not going to have a gig.
Right.
And if I'm not prepared, be prepared. I was a Boy Scout. And I didn't get to Eagle Scout, but I was a Boy Scout. But I learned from that experience, and I learned along the way, and I made a lot of mistakes along the way. And I think you got to be on time, and you got to come in prepared. And as far as business, I've always been very interested in talking to the lawyers who we've dealt with and guided us along the way, and the accountants who have guided us along the way. And I've always wanted to learn in the legal aspect about how these record deals work, because they were so complicated. I didn't want to get ripped off.
Yeah.
Because you read all the stories of everybody who's been ripped off in this business. And fortunately, we had a lawyer in the very beginning, a guy named George Fearon, who was Led Zeppelin's attorney. And he was very gracious with his knowledge. And his protege back then was a guy named John Wilk, and he's still our lawyer today. And we're really good friends. And so I've been lucky to be surrounded with such great people who can kind of guide me along the way. I guess me being organized is just comes from me worrying a lot that I'm not going to be, that I'm going to be embarrassed because I'm not prepared. Like I haven't practiced enough to really do the gig. That's a terrible feeling. Get up in front of an audience and blow it. So I think it comes from my personality of just kind of worrying too much.
Yeah.
But
well, it's a blessing and a curse. I asked because by far that's the biggest issue that people, I've interviewed over 400 people. That's the biggest issue that people have had. And they'll say, hey, if I, what's a weakness, or I don't know anything about business. And it's unfortunate because it's like, that's almost more important than knowing how to play guitar, or as important as knowing how to play guitar, for sure, And I just got the feeling from you that you were on top of this stuff. So, kudos to you for, making it a point to get the information or to learn or whatever. But, I think that's a very important thing. And that you had the awareness to do that was great.
Well, thank you. I have to say that one of the quotes that I really thought was excellent was from David Coverdale. And he had an interview where he said, it's the music business. You got to have one eye on the music and one eye on the business. And I thought that was really, really clever. But it's not an infinite business for us. I mean, and in any form of business that you're in, or any work that you're in, you've got a finite amount of work that you can do. Age catches up to you pretty quickly. So while you're there, you want to try to max out on your time and your efforts. And if you squander it, then you're going to look back later and go, man, I really messed up. And I've learned from that. I've learned that, I shouldn't have made this stupid mistake and said yes here or said no there, or signed this, because it really wasn't the right thing to do. But I was sometimes so anxious to sign something just to get something started that it did the wrong thing. So.
Yeah, I think everybody's made. I don't know anybody who's run a business who hasn't made mistakes. And the thing is, you guys are running a business, and I think that's part of it. Most people don't see it like that. They don't look at it that they're small business owners. They look at it, oh, I'm a guitar player. You're an entrepreneur that plays guitar, and that's the issue. I think anyway, from the outside.
Yeah, I haven't really thought of it like that, but now that you mention it, I guess that's kind of accurate. I mean, I always spend more time on the music than I do on the business, but I always go back and try to do the business as best I can to make sure everybody's treated fairly and everybody feels good about it, and on both sides of our transactions and within our organization, and make sure that stuff gets done, because it'll pile up quickly if you let it. And if you don't keep one eye on that, then your music will suffer, I think.
Yeah, for sure, man.
You can't do the business and get to the audience that you want to get to.
Totally. Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah,
so you had the first two albums do great, and then you changed producers for the third FireHouse CD. Why was that?
Well, David Prater had produced our first two records, and he's just a fantastic producer. We saw Nirvana hit, and we just thought, maybe it would be time to kind of try to change the way that we make our records sound, where, and not that David Prater couldn't make this kind of record, because he could probably make any kind of record. We just thought it'd be good to bring in somebody new for us who was a seasoned veteran producer. And, Ron Nevison, we were touring at the time with Damn Yankees, and Jack and Tommy said, "Oh, you really should use Ron." And Ron came out to a show, and then he came down to Sarasota, and we just hit it off with the guy, and we thought, that this will be great. I mean, the guy produced so many legend guitar players, from Michael Schenker being one of them, And that was one of the reasons why I want Ron Nevison. He produced all the Schenker stuff.
He produced Michael Schenker. Yeah, that's.
But Ron was great. We went to LA and recorded, and it was mainly to try to get our sound to be more intimate and sound like the band playing, not in the arena, but kind of in your head or in your living room or whatever. So we wanted to have that kind of sound where it wasn't as slick and as produced of a record. It was more of a raw, true, edgy kind of sound, but still with our pop side of our style of writing.
And then around the same time, if I have my timelines right, you guys started touring overseas. Is that around is that correct?
Yeah, that's about right. Things got slow in America, and the record company said, "Hey, you guys are selling some records overseas. Why don't you guys go over there?" And we thought, well, yeah, if we, can't get a good gig here in America, we might as well go overseas.
Yeah, sure.
Let's see what happens. So we did a tour of Southeast Asia, and the record went, excuse me, the record went gold in a few of those countries. Sorry about that. It's going to ring because here we go.
You did a tour of Southeast Asia and record went gold.
So we did a tour of Southeast Asia, and we started getting sales. And these are countries like Indonesia, Thailand, Singapore, Malaysia, Korea. We've been to Japan a couple of times already, so we went back to Japan. I'm trying to think of what other countries I might be missing, but the Southeast Asian countries that, frankly, I hadn't really thought that they were countries I'd ever be able to see in my lifetime. And now we get to go over there every now and then. I've probably been to Indonesia 10 times. We developed an audience over there. We went over there, we did that tour, it was successful. We came back again, we played more cities, came back the third time, we did more cities. We'd go over there, we'd play 20 shows, and they were big, like basketball, gymnasium kind of gigs. So that was a really interesting time. It was on the one hand, with the way the industry was changing in America, for bands like us, where radio stations didn't want to play our kind of music, any bands like us. In America, MTV wasn't playing it, but we could go overseas and we could play for big audiences, and we were on MTV in Asia. So that was pretty cool. We did have a song on our third record that got into the top 20. So that was one of the things that kind of made the record company go, I guess we still have something here. That was a song called "I Live My Life for You," and it went to number one in like Green Bay, Wisconsin, but also overseas it did really well. So that's one of our bigger songs over there, actually. And but that cultivating that market over there and just saying, okay, we're going to go. There's no money in it, but let's go over there and see what happens, and maybe we can, make this into something. The fans took to us, thankfully, and we were able to go back again and again.
So you created a whole new marketplace for yourself, basically. That was, I'm assuming, profitable?
I think so, and I think the record company helped us out a bit with that too, because they felt that over there we could sell some records, but they didn't give us much love after that third record at Epic. In fact, when it came time to make the fourth record, which is called Good Acoustics, we went in for, I called our guy and I said, man, we're going to make that fourth record? And he said, well, we're thinking about putting out your greatest hits. And I said, oh no, that means you're going to drop us. Don't do that. I said, how about if we re-record, our greatest hits acoustically, and we write 3 or 4 more songs, new songs, and put them on this album. And he said, well, I can't get you the full budget. I said, well, what can you get us? And I think it was $10,000 he was able to get for us. So I said, we'll make it. We'll make this record. And we did it in Sarasota, Florida. And that record went gold in 6 countries. They didn't put 1 penny into promoting it in America because they couldn't get, the president of the label at the time to say, yeah, we'll do it. People went to bat for us, but ultimately there wasn't 1 penny to promote that album in America. But it did well everywhere it was played.
Yeah. It's funny. I've spoken to a number of guys, in our age bracket that were in a similar situation. And as soon as the grunge thing came, same story as what you're saying. It's like, it was like they ceased to exist in the eyes of the labels, man. It was just like this thing took over, and it was very powerful at the time.
Yeah, we didn't sound like the bands that were happening at the time. So the theory was nobody's going to play it.
Yeah.
And there might have been a lot of fact to that. However, our third record, like I said, we had a top 20 hit. They didn't really promote it. They just sent it out to the radio stations. A couple radio stations played it. Oh yeah, I remember FireHouse. We had success with them before they played the song, and the song got phone calls. And so when people said that, I want to hear it again, the radio stations listened, and they told their other radio stations, and the thing built into it. I think it went to, I don't know, it's top 20. I'm not exactly sure of the number, but it was a tough time for bands like us. But Pearl Jam was on our label, for example. So that, when we came in after our first time being with the label, we came back for that second record. We saw the big Pearl Jam poster up front, and the emphasis was on Pearl Jam. We were thinking, well, okay. I mean, I'm sure they'll give us something. And the promotion, we knew what it was like to get the love in the beginning, and then we learned what it's like to not get the record company love.
Yeah.
And love equals money.
Love equals money. Yeah, sure, man. So that's when you started producing the record. So was that sort of like by default financially? Cause like you had X amount of dollars and you said, shit, I'll produce it and I'll make it in house here and we'll do a good job.
That's how it was. I had, a really good engineer named Mark Severns, who was from there. He taught at Full Sail, and he helped engineer it. And we had a lot of trouble with some of the gear. It was when ADATs were happening. You remember the old ADAT machines, and we had hooked the 4 ADATs together, and they were eating tapes. So we'd finish everything, get not the whole album, but finish, let's say, the drums, and then go to back these tapes up, and then they would eat these tapes. And so that was driving us crazy, but we got through the record, and it, to me, it was like giving birth. I was there with Mark for every, laying down of every track. And for the mixing of it, we used this guy named Eric Schilling, who's just a world-class mix engineer, Gloria Estefan's engineer in Miami. So we did it all there in Florida, and it was a great experience.
And that ultimately led to you to being able to do all these functions on your own.
I think I learned, I was always a hobbyist at recording. I did our 4-track demos before we had our record deal, in my bedroom. And actually, when we got the band house, we had a basement. We had the drums set up down there. We ran the snake through the air conditioning ductwork into my bedroom, which was then the control room. So we cut drums isolated, and we could overdub and make some pretty good demos on a 4-track, a Tascam 244. And so I was always into doing that. It was just with that, you had to ping pong your tracks, and once you ping ponged so many times, it stopped sounding good.
Yeah.
But I was always in the studio learning from David Prater and Doug Oberkirker, the engineer. And then when we did our third record, I sponged every bit of knowledge I could off of Ron Nevison, who was he worked with Led Zeppelin and The Who, and he was an incredible engineer and producer. So I really, every time we had lunch, he was always telling me stories and telling me about audio, and I really learned. I feel like he was the guy who really taught me the most. And then on the third record, it was mixed by Chris Lord-Alge, and he was the same kind of guy where he would give me advice and tips, and so those two guys, I'd say, taught me more than anything. And it's the thing where you're always learning. I mean, I love learning about audio and recording and engineering, and but those guys really lit the fire on me and made me want to learn more.
That's cool. Yeah, you've said that several times now. That's your thing. You like to be. You're always looking to get more, learn more, which is I think it's great. It makes life a lot more interesting and productive, man. I think so anyway. So here you are, 2018 or 2019, and you're still touring. Did you ever imagine that?
I imagined it, but the reality of it all, I had to really think realistically that, what are the chances? You're lucky if you're in a band and you're able to tour for 2 years, and most bands don't get to make that second record. So I had to think realistically that, it probably won't, the band probably won't have the longevity that we dream of, but let's do everything we can to try to give ourselves the best shot to have that longevity. Because it's really the ultimate dream, is to be able to do this for a living forever.
Yeah.
Let's try to go as long as Keith Richards, and, I'm not sure that's possible for anybody, but, we're still able to do it. And, a lot of it is because we're all headed in the same direction musically with melodic hard rock is what we really like. And we'd like a little bit of pop in there too, and in our personal lives, personally, we're all kind of the same people. I think we were raised in good families, and we all care about each other. And I've seen a lot of bands, that don't, and we deep down we really do. We have our squabbles, but we always walk away going, hey,
you worked it out.
We're gonna make it through this, and here let's keep going. And usually, the disagreements come from a place where somebody wants the best for the band, and it's just a different point of view. And if you can just back up and go, hey, nobody's really arguing about whether, the chorus should go on twice at the end of the song because they want to, have the spotlight on them. It's because they really feel that's going to make the song really have the most impact. And that's really what it's all about.
But I think also, and I don't mean this in like a blowing smoke up your ass way, but you got good songs. I mean, that's the bottom line. That's what drives this thing. People want to hear your music, man. I mean, you need good songs to do that. If you didn't have a catalog of good songs that people enjoy, they wouldn't be coming out to the shows, man. Whether it's a week after the record comes out or 30 years after the record comes out, Well,
thank you. I feel like I really think that's the hardest part of being a musician is trying to come up with good songs. And I'm really fortunate that I've worked with CJ Snare, who is just an incredible songwriter. We songwriting partners through all that, and then we collaborated with the whole band for a few songs, but it's a magical thing when you get a really good idea that you can pursue. There's so many ideas that are okay that you could pursue, but that it's just not going to really make you feel all that excited about it. If you've got an idea that really gets you excited, then you really get the extra energy to see it through to fruition. And that's I think the luck that we got was that a lot of these ideas came to us, and we got to work instead of going out and doing the things that you can be distracted in doing when you're, either on tour or on a break. We got to work and I think that paid off.
Oh, for sure, man. Tell me about, you've got 4 solo records and a 5th one on the way. How did you manage to, find the time to do all that?
The first one I did, there was a few songs that I'd put forward for a FireHouse record that, we vote on what songs we want to get, and they just didn't make it on the record. And I felt like, if these fit my voice, so maybe I can put them out. It was a little more bluesy than FireHouse is, maybe. So I did. I had a handful of them, maybe 6 or so. Let's say that I could maybe pull off. And I just started recording them in my bedroom at my house, and I went somewhere else and did drums later. Michael Foster played drums on it. This is an album called Wanderlust. And Bruce Wabel, rest in peace, brother Bruce. He was our bass player for about a year in FireHouse. He played bass on it, and I just thought, I've got these songs sitting here. I might as well do something with them. And if I had any time off, I'd go up and start fiddling with them. And when it was done, that first one made me feel like, well, what should I do for my second one? And I always wanted to do an instrumental record. And I wrote 3 instrumental songs with the idea that if I ever get to do a guitar clinic, I'll have something to play instead of, here's this riff from my old record or whatever. I could actually play some music that was instrumental music. So I did 3 songs, and I got excited about it. So I thought, well, I'll only have to do 7 more to have an album. So I wrote 7 more and put that out. And then
hold on one second. Did you ever do a guitar clinic?
Yeah, I did a few of them. I did a few, yeah.
Because it's weird. Like, you always have these things, and like I always do projects too. And sometimes you have wacky reasons. Like, not that that's a wacky reason, but it's like, sometimes you come up with a reason like, oh yeah, so if I have a guitar clinic, which has really nothing to do with the thing you want to do. It's just, sometimes you need a reason to rationalize your follow through,
Well, I always loved instrumental music, and I thought if I do a guitar clinic, it shouldn't be me singing. It should be, because, let's face it, I'm not a great singer anyway, but I can carry a tune, but if I can play and demonstrate different sounds of an amp or a guitar, then I might be able to do it. And I did a few of them, and they were fun. And I did a gig or 2 just as an instrumental guitarist, going out. And I opened up for Gary Hoey.
Did you really? He's a monster, man.
Oh, I love the guy.
What a great player.
Great. Awesome player. He let me play his amp, as a matter of fact, because the amp that they had brought, I guess, he goes, man, you just got to try mine. So I played his. It was awesome. So, doing the instrumental thing was something I wanted to do. And again, it was a learning experience. I was always, influenced by instrumental guitarists. And so I did that, and that was really cool. And then I got this weird idea from my brother to do a bunch of really old songs. So I did my 3rd record. Is called Deep South, and it's all songs from the Deep South, from the Restoration era, from the late 1800s to the early 1900s, 1920s or so. And most of the songs are public domain, so I didn't have to, buy a license for them. I did Hit the Road Jack, the Ray Charles song, on there. And another tune that I really like, but all the other songs are public domain. And I did my interpretation of them. Some of them I treated as authentically as I could, the way that I thought that they would be best done. Like if it was a bluegrass song, I kept it kind of bluegrassy, and if it was a song that was kind of a spiritual song, I'd rock it up. And so I rocked some of them up. But anyway, that one's called Deep South. And then the last album I did was all cover tunes from my childhood.
Oh, that's cool.
Mostly 70s songs. I Shot the Sheriff. I did a Little Feat song called Spanish Moon. I did Ricky Owens.
Oh, God, what a great song that is.
Oh, man, thank you. Well, I can't say thank you because I didn't write it, but I love that song and brilliant tune and the horn arrangement and everything. So I tried to be true to these producers and these writers that did the originals, but I tried to put my herbs and spices in there a little bit too.
Yeah.
So that was a real education as well, because a lot of the 70s, music had great players and great producers and great songwriters. I did Fire by the Ohio Players, which
great
is
tune,
funk song. Yeah. And a lot of horns in that. So I tried to have the horns in there as well as playing guitar with the horn lines. And that was just a wonderful learning experience because, I did a Stevie Wonder song, so learning how he bends his notes and how he phrases his background vocals and the question answer thing that he does was just awesome. And he inspired me a lot as a kid. So I really wanted to do one of his songs. And that leads me to where I am today, which I've got 9 songs done for my next album. I've released them all as singles. So whenever I finish one, I put it out because I'm too anxious to hold on to it forever. I got one more song. Once I finish it, I'll have an album. So it'll be my 5th one. I don't know what I'm going to call it.
You know what? Reminds me of something John told me. I think I asked John, because John Prestia, he's got I think he's got 10 or 11 records.
Oh, yeah. And they're all great.
And I said to him, John, what makes you put out so many records still? And he goes, Craig, a song has to have life. It doesn't have life sitting in my, on a sheet of paper. He goes, it needs to be alive, and you put it to life, man. And that's funny. I remember him saying that.
Great way to put it.
Yeah.
And so true. We can play it for, our friends and family, but I want everybody to hear it. And, and that's the hard part is the marketing of it. I have no idea how to get a song marketed and get people to listen to it. But I figure if it's out there, maybe one day somebody will stumble across it, and hopefully they will.
It's funny. A couple of things you mentioned. I want to remind me of stuff. Have you ever heard Government Mule's version of Spanish Moon?
I have. It's fantastic.
Killer, man.
Fantastic. Warren is just a monster. I mean, the whole band is great.
Yeah.
And Matt, incredible, the nicest guy. When I was a kid, at the pool, those summers, Waiting for Columbus came out.
Yeah.
And that whole album just knocked me out. I loved how different it was and how Lowell had so much soul in his voice and in his playing.
Yeah.
And that was the song that really stood out to me. Dixie Chicken was great, and there was a ton of them on that double album. But that song, to me, had that dark spookiness. And
great song, man.
I just don't know what it is. It was magic to me, and that was the one I wanted to hear over and over again.
And the other thing, do you know Doug Rappaport?
I do. Yeah.
Did you know Doug took lessons from Gary Hoey?
Did he really?
Yeah. I just interviewed Doug real recently. We were talking, and so I think Gary was out in Santa Monica, and that's where Doug lived. And Doug's all self-taught. He said I took a few lessons from Gary Hoey, and he really helped me because he was getting the theory stuff together. And I thought that was pretty interesting.
Wow.
Yeah, because totally different players, but both great players.
Yeah. Oh man, no doubt.
Man, what would you say are the top, if you can have top three experiences you've had musically, Bill? Either for any reason, the vibe, the quality of the work, the nostalgia, the people you're playing with.
Well, I'll say one of the biggest ones was in living in Sarasota. I got to meet Brian Johnson.
Oh,
Brian Johnson is like the perfect mega rock star. You would never know it by sitting down and talking to him because he's so humble and he's so kind and he's so funny. and we could be having dinner and people are tapping him on the shoulder saying, "Can I get a picture?" And he, "Absolutely, how you doing? I'd love to take a picture. Come on over here. What's your name?" And I learned so much from him about how to be nice to people. And he was just such a humble guy. But there were 2 times that I got to play with him. Once for a benefit that he and his wife did for a theater in Sarasota, and I got to play 4 AC/DC songs with him and Cliff.
Wow!
And Michael Foster played drums on that too, but the FireHouse drummer, and he got to play that as well. And so that was a really great moment to be up there playing AC/DC songs and looking over there, and there's the lead singer for AC/DC, and there's the bass player for AC/DC, and there's Michael, my buddy I've known since '84. That was great. And then Brian, we were playing this gig at the St. Pete Pier there by you on July 4th, and I'm thinking the year would have been 1994 or 5, and Brian said, "Yeah, well, we're going to come up there and hang out." And I said, you want to do a song?" "Oh, I'd love to do a song." So we did You Shook Me All Night Long. And
that's crazy, man.
And I don't know, we might have done Back in Black. I think we might have just done You Shook Me All Night Long. But we did that, and there were 84,000 people on that pier. So that was
that's crazy,
you asked
man.
for my top 3. That's like 300 rolled into one, because he became a friend of mine, and he was just such a wonderful human being, and to be able to play music with him was just absolutely awesome. He came to a FireHouse rehearsal one time and hung out, and he just, so to me that was like one of the big ones, or 300 of the big ones. But Brian was absolutely fantastic. I'd say another one was playing a gig at Sturgis and opening up for Ted Nugent, and then looking over to my left, and there was Ted Nugent. He was one of my biggest influences, and we toured with Damn Yankees for a long time. Or I guess that was about 3 months, and then we, I'd met him several times, but after that show, I got to talk to him more, and he remembered me, so I was like, Ted remembers me, and but looking over to the side and seeing him there, that was a great moment to see him over there, because that was one of the first concerts I ever saw, and it really changed my life. That first Ted Nugent tour where he did Stranglehold and
great
and all of that, that changed my life.
In what way?
I've told him, it made me say, I've got to learn how to do this. That is just crazy cool. And I saw it at a theater in Richmond, Virginia. It was called the Mosque. And then I don't know if it was 2 months later, Kiss came through on that Alive tour or whatever. And I saw that, and that was another one. Like, oh man, this is just so cool. I've got to try to figure out how to play guitar. So, but Ted was a big one. I'm trying to think of the third one. And musically, I've just been so lucky to be able to play. I got to jam with Frank Hannon a couple of times. He's just a wonderful guy, and I think that's one of them too, because he's just such a genuine, cool guy and such a great guitar player. And I love his band Tesla. So I don't know. I mean, I could just go on forever. There have been so many. I've been so blessed to be able to have so many musical experiences and play solos on people's records where I go, wow, they had such a cool chord change there, and that's a great musical experience to me to go. I would have never thought to have gone there, and now how am I going to figure out a melody that'll fit with those chords? And that to me is also a great experience, because I'm trying to get better,
Yeah, totally get that, man.
It never ends, man. It's always, music is so much fun. It can be it can be such a challenge, and it is. But I have a lot of fun doing it.
That's really cool. Thank you. Side note, they've demolished that pier. They're like in the major stages of rehabbing it. Yeah, it's like being redone as we speak. Yeah, it's a big, massive financial push because there's a lot of money that'll be over there. Because St. Pete is a cool as hell. It's much cooler than Tampa. It's a great hangout place.
Yeah, I really liked it up there. That was fun.
It's great. We go there sometimes just for a weekend or like a Saturday night just to hang out. Because there's a lot more to do there than there is here in Tampa. Yeah. Is there anything, Bill, if you could, like maybe advice that you would have benefited from hearing? So like if you can go back and give younger Bill Leverty advice, is there anything you would have told yourself that might have helped you personally, business-wise, musically, anything?
Well, the main thing I would say would be to practice more. Practice when you're younger, because when you get older, your back is going to go out. Your neck is going to go out. Your hands are going to start hurting. You're not going to have as much time to practice when you get older either, because life gets busy. So when you're young and you're able to learn new tricks, be that guy that's going to wake up an hour earlier to practice and go to bed that hour later, not because you were up partying, but because you were practicing. And I tell myself to try to write more, try to keep a book of lyrics going, try to read some of these great poets that came out of America and some of these great lyricists, and try to come up with some of your own stuff, because it doesn't happen by itself. You have to make yourself think, okay, I'm going to try to write a song. It's very rare for me. It may work for other people, but it's very rare for me that I'm just driving down the street and all of a sudden I got this great idea for a song. It usually comes from, as a piano player, they call it bench time. You're sitting down on that piano bench and you're riffing and you're coming up with stuff and you're coming up with ideas. You got to do your bench time with your instrument and with your mind for lyrics. And now, if you're doing instrumental music, that doesn't matter. It's all bench time with your instrument. But the lyrics are important, I think. And the other thing I would tell myself is to try to learn as much music theory as you can, and try to learn a little bit about all the instruments. Take a music theory class, which I did. I wish I had gone a little further with that. I wish I had taken more lessons from more players, because every lesson that you take from anybody is a shortcut to for all the thousands of hours, the 10,000 hours that person put in to learning what they know. And that knowledge is powerful.
Thanks, man. It's funny. Do you know Jim Peterick? I'm sure you know Jim Peterick.
I don't know him, but I know who he is. Yeah, I have great admiration for him. He's awesome. Brilliant
dude. I interviewed him, and he's that guy. He has a book. And anytime, like we were talking and then like a couple of phrases came up, I don't know, maybe he said one, I said, and he pulled out his book and he right there on this, he's really on top of this shit.
He's got it with him. I got it in my phone. I call it the hook book.
Yeah.
And you got to have a hook book.
Yeah.
And start your hook book now and go look at it every night before you go to bed. Try to add something to it. And when you wake up in the morning, whatever's going through your head, try to put something in your hook book, because often, dreams will bring out lyrics and ideas and melodies and stuff like that. So try to hum them into your phone. You'll be glad you did. Hey, 90% of it is dirt, but there's that 10% of gold, and we're digging for gold.
Yeah, man.
And every now and then you get a nugget, and if you don't record it or document it in some way, it's going to be gone.
It's in the ether, man. That is great advice, and anybody that's a player should be listening to that. I've done that. I've been running a marketing business for 20 years. I cannot tell you how many ideas I have in the middle of the night, woke up, grab my phone, write it down. And whether it's a piece of ad copy I need, or it's an idea for how to sell something. And if I didn't do that, I'd be so screwed. Totally.
Yeah. Cool.
Let's talk about gear for a few minutes. What's your go-to guitar right now? And what other two guitars would round out your top three? And what were your guitars that you were primarily playing back in the 90s?
Back in the 90s, I was endorsed with Yamaha. So I was playing the Yamaha Pacifica 1221M. It was a great 24 fret neck Strat style guitar with a locking tremolo. Had a maple neck and a real snappy tone. I really loved that guitar. And that's what I played for probably 18 years.
Oh, wow.
The first FireHouse record, however, I recorded with a Jackson soloist.
Yeah, that sounds makes more sense.
Yeah, I didn't have the Yamaha endorsement at the time, but it's 24 fret neck, Strat style guitar. So recently, what I'm playing is a guitar I love, a company that's just great. It's called C.R. Alsop. The letter C dot R dot Alsop. It's a small company. They're in Atlanta, and he has the body design it's unique. It's kind of a Strat, kind of a little bit like an SG, kind of hybrid. 24 fret neck, ebony fingerboard.
I love an ebony fingerboard. Man.
I do too. I'm yeah.
Dude, I have this Strat here. It's ebony. I can't
nice.
I can't put it down.
That's pretty. So this is a neck through body guitar. It's got purple heart and lacewood and maple as the components of the neck through body piece, and then the sides are cherry. And the tone is really, really beautiful and fat. A really great mid-range, low mids in the tone. I've got a Duncan Custom 78 in the bridge, which was wound by the same person at Seymour Duncan that wound Eddie Van Halen's pickups. The pickup engineer there is named MJ. And she made my pickup, and it just sounds perfect to me. The perfect amount of harmonics, the perfect amount of fullness. It cuts through just perfectly. When you roll off the volume, it cleans up really nicely. And I just love this guitar. It's got FU tone upgrades on it. I just recently put a tone vise nut, a keyless nut lock on it. You can look that up, tone-vise.com. It makes it so you don't have to use an Allen wrench on your nut anymore. And that's a fantastic little addition. I got a Shaler Sure Claw on it also, which means that you never have to take off the back of the guitar if you need to adjust the spring tension. So there's an Allen wrench that goes through that back plate. You can tighten or loosen it. So with what we do in FireHouse is we do about 90% traveling and about 10% music. I mean, I'm on a plane. The guitar is checked underneath. I check one guitar under there.
Oh, you do?
Yeah.
Wow.
And I get there and this guitar is in tune. So I've got to be able to get it up and ready to go really quickly. We have really short set changes and stuff with what we do. So this guitar is working out great. I love it.
It's CR ALSUP?
SIP.
ALSIP. How'd you find them, or did they find you?
I did a clinic for the guy who's the CEO of the company, Jake Willoughby, had me do a clinic at his music store. And he said, I'm thinking about making guitars. Would you be interested in trying one out? I said, I'd love to try it. And
what guitar player is going to say, no, I don't want to try a new guitar? Nah.
Because I was endorsed with a different company at the time. But I said, man, I'd love to try it. And he made it, and it was fantastic. And the other company stopped being able to do it. So
it worked out, timing.
It was just perfect timing. And I've been with CR Alsop ever since.
Very cool, man. What's your number 2 and number 3?
Well, I have 2 CR Alsops. The second CR Alsop has a lot more coils tapping capabilities and It's got a titanium plate. It's on the bridge, which is really nice. And that's a great guitar. I guess my number, gosh. So I would put both of my CR Allsticks as number one because I can get any tone pretty much out of that. But trying to think of I don't have a whole hell of a lot of guitars. I do have a 65 Strat that when I want the real single coil, that Strat sound, I'd say that's the go-to guy for that. And that's really my only collectible guitar. I also have two tellies. I have one that's a regular telly, and then I got one with a B-bender on it. Oh, so I've got.
Do you do a lot of B-bender stuff?
When I get a country session, I will do it, and nothing sounds like it.
Where is that? Who made that guitar?
Oh, that was just off the shelf, a Guitar Center Telecaster. I think it would probably be like an 05, maybe an 07. But that thing sounds great, man. Love a telly. You just, nothing sounds like that at all.
No, but you have to like I was telling you earlier. I haven't figured that out. It's not. I think you got to play a lot of guitar and really know what the hell you're doing to enjoy a telly properly.
It's for me. I pick it up, I plug it in, I try to get it to the tone to be right, but it just fits for a lot of the subtle, coloration kind of parts in a lot of the songs I did. A lot of the songs that I did on my Deep South record were done with a telly because they were country songs or traditional gospel songs, and the telly just fits so well. And a lot of times you put a telly on the left and a Les Paul on the right, and it just sounds so cool. Stereo imaging. So I don't know. I really just love the sound of a telly. The twang is something I can't get with anything else. And sometimes that's what I hear in my head, and I got to go for that telly. It's hard to play for me. It's a hard instrument for me to play well. Takes me a lot of takes to get it down. That's for sure.
This unfair question, but who are the guitar players you like listening to?
Oh, there are many, but my favorite guitar player of all time is Steve Morse.
I interviewed Steve, man, and
he is
incredible.
He's the best. He's the best, and I've met him a couple of times, and he was just so nice to me. And I guess during the early '90s, up until '96, we had a guy as our sound engineer named Charlie Buster, who was Steve Morse's sound engineer before that. So I always, had that conversation piece to say, hey, Steve, I'm in this band FireHouse. And he said, oh, yeah, Charlie's your sound man. And yeah. So, but yeah, Steve is just, I wish the whole world knew what an amazing human being he is. And his music is just so far beyond everybody else. I love the styles that he plays, which he's so multifaceted. And if I could, be 1/10 of 1% as good as Steve Morse, I think I'd be doing something. So anytime anybody, I should just say anytime that I start feeling confident, all you got to do is put on a Steve Morse record and you go, you know what? I need to practice because
put on some Dixie Dregs
yeah. And I need to write. I need to work on making the changes in my music better. I need to work on making my riffs better because the stuff that he puts out is just the best of the best of the best. He's from another planet. I saw him live when I was a kid in a bar, and I saw him again in a theater, and he is it to me. So the other guy, I'd say, two other guys. Let's see, Jeff Beck.
Oh God, yeah,
it's another one. I mean, when you hear him play, it's all him. He's got his own thing, and it just keeps getting better. The guy's just got such a feel and such a tone, and just such a command of making his guitar sing.
What he does with that guitar is it's not even like a guitar, man. It's a voice.
Yeah.
And I interviewed two of his guitarists. I interviewed Jennifer Batten, who played with him for 3 years, and I interviewed Carmen Vandenberg, the young gal who did the last tour. And I asked them both the same question. So like, did you get any inkling, like, how does he be Jeff Beck? And they were both like, fucking studied it every night. I have no idea.
I mean, I've watched him, I watched him play, and I got to meet him one time. He was really nice. And I met him in London, actually. And he was really cool. And I just bought his box set. And I said, man, I just bought your box set. And can you tell me what it was like working with Nile Rodgers? I really like his production. Oh, it was great, man. It was good. Okay. Man, can you wait right here while I go get my camera? I got to get a picture. Oh, okay, no problem. So I got a picture with him and everything. But the Blow by Blow record and the Wired record were two records that really influenced me, and just opened up my mind to music and what could be done. I'd have to throw in Alan Holdsworth as another guy. I could never play like that, but his sound and just the, by osmosis, I think he's crept into me. I'd never be able to play anything that he played, and I'd never be able to think in terms of music that but him makes me try things that I wouldn't normally try. So that's three, but I got to also throw in the couple of rock guys, which would be Eddie Van Halen is a huge influence. Ted Nugent is a huge influence, who I love, and Michael Schenker, who I already mentioned. So I turned 3 into 6.
There you go, man. No, that's very cool.
Here's another one, Al Di Meola.
I'm going to make sure I send you that Steve Morse interview, because he's as equally genuine as a human being as he is. I mean, he's just a really sweet guy, man. Very kind, compassionate person.
Wonderful, wonderful guy. He's always been nice to me. 3 or 4 times I met him, even back in the bar when I was a little kid, and they were sound checking, and I was hanging out, and I approached him, and he was finishing up his lunch and drinking milk, and he was giving me advice as a little kid. It was really cool. Just wonderful guy. But we get to play gigs from time to time with Winger. And so I get to talk to Rod Morgenstein. And I mean, all the guys in Winger are great. I mean, Reb and Kip and John and Rod. But I always, we did a tour with those guys where we played a bunch of gigs in Norway and a cruise off of Denmark. And I always try to make a point to talk to Rod, because, he's got all that dregs, those stories and everything. And he's so kind and generous and forthcoming with kind of telling me how it was back then. And it's just fascinating to me.
They had a hell of a difficult time constantly. It was always a struggle, those guys, man. And
the greatest musicians that have ever, ever walked the planet.
Desert Island Discs, top 3, no particular order, and just for today, like for now, could change tomorrow.
Well, for the Dregs, it's hard to pick one, but so I'd have to go with their live album, Bring 'Em Back Alive, because it's got kind of so many great songs on it, and it's got Steve's solo, which is just extraordinary on it. I think that first Van Halen record would have to be one. I mean, that was just a phenomenal record to me, and the songs are great, the music's great, and his guitar sound just still to this day, I just go, wow, I can't believe how great that is. And let me think of a third one here. I'd say the first Aerosmith record. Oh. I think that first Aerosmith record was just the best debut rock album of all time.
Great record, man. Has your life been different than what you'd imagined?
Sure. Yeah, it's been different. But what I imagined 30 years ago is so much different than what I imagined a year ago. And it's still different. But it's exciting. I had no idea 30 years ago that I'd be talking to you and doing an interview like this. This is a cool interview.
Thanks.
Always dreamed that I'd be able to do an interview like this. But I kind of imagined that I'd be able to do it, but I just didn't know, 30 years ago, I was, thinking about, trying to get a record deal, trying to, meet girls and trying to, get the name of a band, get a place to practice, trying to learn how to play a Scorpion song or whatever. But all of it, I always thought that if I could just make a living, to pay the bills, then I'd be okay. I just wanted to be a professional musician. I wanted to be able to do it full time. I didn't want to have another job and be a musician. I wanted to be a musician full time. So I didn't know what that really meant, though. I thought it was, where you get on a tour bus and go out and play gigs, in arenas. And what I found is that what it really is waking up at 3:00 in the morning to go catch the 6 a.m. flight to fly to connect somewhere at an airport where you got to wait for 2 or 3 hours. Then you fly another, 3 hours to wherever you land. Then you hop in a van and you drive for 2 or 3 hours to wherever the middle of the field is, where they're having the big holiday bash or whatever party that you're playing. And you get up there to play on rental gear and you try to make it sound as good as you can, but there are all these obstacles that happen, and every gig is different.
Yeah.
And I thought it was going to be a little bit more like, like the big time when we were really hitting selling records and stuff, we played on the same gear. We played on our gear every night. Now it's very rare that we're playing on our own gear. I mean, I would say that 95% of our gigs that we do are not on our own gear. I bring my own guitar and I bring my Fractal Audio AX8 that gives me the same tone every night, and I love that thing. That's saved my life. I love that box. But it's usually a rental drum kit, and it's usually a rental bass amp, and rental PA and a rental light show. But fortunately, we're getting hooked up through our booking agent with promoters who have done this before and know what they're doing. But every day's a challenge. I thought it was going to be a lot easier.
Yeah. But that you've done it 30 years is just pretty phenomenal.
Yeah. I thank God every day.
Yeah. Do you have any hobbies or interests outside of music? I know you said you're a big sports guy.
Well, I love ice hockey. I don't follow it as much as I used to, but that I would say that would be my hobby. But music to me is my career and my life. My family's first. My music and music is my hobby and my career. So I do it for enjoyment as well. So it's become the kind of thing where if I want to go down there and fiddle around with something on the piano, I guess piano has become a little bit of a hobby. I'm not really a good piano player at all, but I like learning how to play piano, get my hands to doing something different, But I guess outside of music, it would be ice hockey. Yeah.
And last question, Bill, is what's been the biggest change in your personality over the last 10 years? And how much of that change has been intentional and deliberate? How much has just been a natural part of aging?
Well, I haven't really done any deliberate personality makeovers or anything to try to get, I do try to, make myself a better person. I try to be more, I guess, compassionate. I try to, I've tried to be a little bit less, not sweating the small stuff, So I think that'd be the main thing is I used to sweat all the small stuff, and now I just sweat a little bit of the small stuff.
That's progress.
Yeah, that's right.
Right. It's moving forward, isn't it? Right. Good. That's great.
Yeah, 'cause stress kills us a little bit every day. And if I can just get stress removed from my life, then I think I'm going to be happier and live longer. But there's always stress there. So it's how you deal with it. And I guess I'm trying to learn how to deal with stress in different ways. And, like you say, it's a day-to-day progress thing.
I'm looking for something my son sent me the other day just about this. The greatest weapon, here goes. He sent me this on Instagram. The greatest weapon against stress is our ability to choose one thought over another.
Ah, that's good.
Yeah, real good.
That's where I got to.
It's a choice.
Yeah, it's psychology. If I could just master a little bit of that, that'd be awesome.
That's your next project.
Wait for that to come in.
Man, I can't thank you enough for your time. I really appreciate it. And let me just tell people where they should connect with you online. Are you on social media, like Instagram?
I am. I'm not sure of my Instagram name. It might just be Leverty, but I'm Leverty everywhere else, Twitter and Facebook. And
well, check out Bill on social media. It's Bill Leverty, Leverty. He's got a really cool website. It's at leverty.com, and he's got all his FireHouse touring there. They're constantly out. And Bill also does Skype lessons. So if you want to take some guitar lessons from a guy who's, written a shit ton of hits and is a great guitar player, he's probably a guy you should look up. Go to leverty.com and you can connect with him on there. And that's it, man. Any final words of wisdom?
Oh, thanks, Craig. I don't have any wisdom, so it's hard for me to put any of that into words, but I really appreciate your time and everybody's time that takes the time to listen to this. And I hope to see you next time we get down in the Tampa St. Pete area.
Absolutely, man. Thanks for everything, Bill. Everybody, thank you so much for listening. If you enjoyed this interview, share it with a friend on your social media channels. We certainly appreciate your support and help. Please check out, thanks to Bill Leverty, and please check out, Bill at Leverty.com and check out FireHouse next time they're in town. I appreciate Bill's time. Make sure you go to everyonelovesguitar.com, sign up to get on our newsletter list so you and I can connect. And most important, remember that happiness is a choice, so choose wisely. Be nice, go play your guitar, and have fun. Till next time, peace and love, everybody. I'm out. We hope you enjoyed this show. If you did, subscribe to the Everyone Loves Guitar podcast, and you can do this online at everyonelovesguitar.com or on iTunes. And if you like the show, please leave us a 5-star positive review. The more 5-star reviews we get, the higher our show ranks, and higher rankings mean we get to continue speaking with cool, interesting guests on our show. We'll see you on the next episode, and until then, keep playing your guitar and have fun making music.